So I want to give you a market update, what's going on with the trade war, the tariffs, and all this AI investment that the Donald Trump people keep bragging about. This is Howard Lutnick, and he's going to be defending this stuff. And let's have a watch.
In our polling, some of the perceptions of the economy, 61% of Americans believe the administration's putting too much focus on tariffs. 70% say the administration's not doing enough to lower prices, and 60% oppose new tariffs on imported goods. This is a centerpiece to your policy plan. How do you reverse public opposition?
Oh, they're going to love the deals that President Trump and I are doing. I mean, they're just going to love them. You know, the president figured out the right answer and sent letters to these countries, said this is going to fix the trade deficit. This will go a long way to fixing the trade deficit. And that's gotten these countries to the table. And they're going to open their markets or they're going to pay the tariff. And if they open their markets, the opportunity for Americans to export, to grow their business, farmers, ranchers, fishermen, this is going to be, the next 2 weeks are going to be weeks for the record books. President Trump is going to deliver for the American people.
All right, so according to Howard Lutnick, when in doubt, President Trump will send letters to countries, and I guess you're all going to be rich and you're all going to be happy. It's weird that they're talking about letters at a time like this, because you guys know Trump's dealing with the Epstein scandal, which is all about writing birthday letters, and then Trump will try to pretend, I don't like letters, I never wrote a letter, but I mean, clearly Lutnick is talking about letters to other countries. And whenever they mention, opening up other countries' markets, what they're trying to say is, hey, other countries have regulations for better quality food, or other countries have regulations to keep products safe, right? Other countries don't necessarily want big American products that are unsafe. Are other countries going to change their policies to accept all these American goods? This is the key sticking point, which a lot of countries just won't do it. And if you ever travel around the world, you'll figure out very quickly that American food quality is not very good in comparison to many countries around the world. So there's that. And I guess if you don't meet Trump's expectations of what he wants in the trade deal, they're going to put maybe anywhere from 10 to 20% on many, many countries. We're going to find out exactly some of the details of this stuff. But they're making the case, though, that these tariffs are going to be good for you and you're going to love it. Let's take a look at more what Lutnick has to say.
I think it's just a wrong way of thinking about it. Americans deserve to be employed here and have the best jobs in the world, and that's what Donald Trump is trying to deliver.
So it's strange because I always want to focus on jobs and the economy, these kind of stuff. Before the idea, because they always change their messaging, but before the idea was we put tariffs on other countries, and then to avoid tariffs, I guess other countries are going to build a bunch of factories in USA. But then the problem became okay, so if there's tariffs on Vietnamese goods from Vietnam, and again, the tariffs are basically a tax, and you're going to end up paying it, the American importer, the American consumer. Does that mean then that we want Vietnam to build factories in USA? To make shoes and all this kind of stuff. And you guys know we talked about this for the last month or so. And this is sort of where it becomes a real big sticking point, because they're promising all these jobs, and the jobs are going to end up being, quote, AI factories. And we'll get into the AI factory stuff, as we go through this, but I want you to understand how their logic doesn't really add up, and that's sort of a big problem with their stuff, and they keep changing their answers. But let's look at what they're talking about with inflation and such.
I was asking about consumer prices, what people will pay when they go to the store. But since you don't want to answer,
they'll be low. I think they'll be low, shockingly low.
Okay, the consumer price index doesn't currently reflect that, though. That the trend is towards higher.
Well, it just went up. What did it go up? 0.1%? Look, the dollar has declined
0.2 on the core,
more than 10%, right? So the dollar declining sort of softens tariffs completely. These are small numbers. You're going to see inflation is not going to change. Remember, inflation is an expectation of rates continuing to grow. Tariffs are just going to reset the price level for imports, for certain imports from certain countries, but everybody was building in America. And remember, Donald Trump announced over $11 trillion of building in America. Okay. All that building in America, the construction jobs here, but then when those products...
So as you see with Lutnick, and honestly, he represents the Trump administration, right? Kind of the way that they talk, the logic they make. there's so much in there to be like, it's so hard to understand your logic. Like he's saying, hey, there's no inflation, prices are going to be low, you're so happy. When the tariffs come in, oh my God, look how cheap everything is. It's like, how does this even make sense? Like you're paying more taxes, or he'll say, hey, the dollar is declining. Oh my God, everything's going to be cheaper for you. That doesn't make sense either, because it's just simple as terms, okay? If you have a stronger dollar, that would make goods in another country cheaper, right? You guys should inherently know this, but I just want to make sure it's clear. So dollar strong, you go to a place like Mexico, just for example, for those of you who travel south, and you'll know, like, oh my God, why is beer so cheap? Why is food so cheap? Because the dollar is stronger than the local currency when you travel to other countries. So this idea when he's saying like dollar declining, then suddenly everything's going to be cheaper from other places. It doesn't, like a lot of stuff that they say doesn't make sense, but unfortunately, or fortunately, however, which side you're on, the Trump people, right, want everyone to be uneducated. They want you to be docile, meaning that don't question anything and just accept what they say. But this is something I emphasize all the time on this channel, is to have critical thinking and actually just think. I mean, honestly. And this is something I encourage you guys also in the community to share thoughts on this stuff with each other, because it is actually really frustrating on a daily basis to be gaslit by these people. And I always find it strange as well how Lutnick, who to me represents the Trump administration as being basically a bunch of used car salesman kind of types, or home shopping network, mixed with TV evangelists. That's essentially who these people are. I always find it strange that anyone would believe anything that these people say, but sadly, there's a large portion of the population that still do. And so that's why it's important to come out with education and talk honestly about this stuff.
Come on the shelves. They come on much cheaper. Energy is cheaper. I think you're going to see inflation stay right where it is. And Jerome Powell, who's held these rates up way too high, you're going to see him cut rates. The Fed's going to cut rates. Mortgages are going to be cheaper. And America's going to be so much better off on.
All right. So we're all going to be great. Everything's going to be great. And right now what they try to do, they try to make it as simple as possible. And they just say, let's just blame Jerome Powell, right? And if it's not that, let's blame Biden. If it's not that, blame Obama. And that's how these people operate. It's not really about logic. It's just trying to make it as simple and as dumb and I guess factually incorrect as possible. And their cult members eat it up. And it's sad. And so when you go through like the news of what's going on, Trump will always deny said things. So for example, this was in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. How Besant made the case to Trump against firing Fed Chair Powell. Because that's something Trump's been fuming about, right? Lower the rates, lower the rates. But you have to remember mortgage rates, for example, is not just the Fed. You have to talk about the bond market. And the bond market anticipates inflation under Trump. And the bond market anticipates deficit spending and more national debt. Hence, they want more rate of return. They want more to buy U.S. debt. So the yields have to go up. And I know a lot of people don't understand this stuff. It's easier just to blame the Fed. But I just want to say, there are more in place than just one person at the Fed, okay? It's all a combination of things, and also you have to talk about the markets as it relates. So basically, the market expects Trump to, continue spending at a deficit, meaning that we're not taking enough money into the government to fund things and have to borrow more money. Borrowing rates will go up. This is what it says, though. It says Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in recent days privately laid out his case to President Trump for why he believed Trump should not try to oust Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. People familiar with the matter said. And a couple of the answers they're talking about is, he said if you do it, the politics won't be on your side. It's a lose-lose situation. Lutnick's name was also referred to in this. So like Lutnick was part of the talks to talk down Trump. So for example, it says here, the Wall Street Journal reported in April that Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, the guy you're watching right now today, advised Trump against attempting to oust Powell when the president publicly mused about Fed leader's termination. In the latest episode, Bessent told Trump that if he fired Powell before the conclusion of his term, the Fed chair could sue and the lawsuit might drag into the spring, coinciding with the end of Powell's term anyway. And, all the indications, Trump doesn't like Powell, but basically they're just looking for something to talk about that we're not talking about Epstein. I can make countless videos of Epstein, but there's a lot of other people doing that stuff already. I may make a few, but I do think talking about money does matter. And honestly, the more that we don't talk about the money, the more they can get away with a bunch of nonsense. It's all nonsense that the stuff is doing, Trump is doing, but I do want to go over this stuff. This is something that is important also. Why do these Lutnick people or Trump people or Musk people, because they're all related, get away with this stuff? some of it has to do with the way things are portrayed in American culture. So for example, The Wolf of Wall Street, you guys may or may not know this movie. It's a real popular movie. Oftentimes when kids think about this movie, young people, right, they say, oh, it was so funny. He had lots of money and party all the time. But you have to understand that these people are criminals, okay? And so when I see the Lutnick person, it makes me instantly think about this Wolf of Wall Street kind of stuff, because Lutnick is a Wall Street guy. These people are criminals, right? And this thing is all about, throwing money around, look how much money they have, etc. But I just want to make it really clear, and you can easily look this stuff up. Jordan Belfort, the real Wolf of Wall Street, was charged with and pleading guilty to securities fraud and money laundering in connection with the stock market manipulation scheme at Stratton Oakmont. They don't emphasize that stuff enough in the movie, that he hurt real people and was just criminal activities, but I understand it's fun to talk about, how much money they had, etc. But I just want you to point out that these people are criminals. Actually, it was interesting as well. The producer of the film was also charged with money laundering connected to a scandal, so there's that.
There are reports that the Treasury Secretary has talked the president out of his threat to fire the Fed chair, since the Fed's already expected on a consensus basis to be lowering rates. Are you telling us tonight or today that he's not under threat, that he will keep his job?
The president is an amazingly transparent person. When he thinks something, he says it. So he says, look, this guy's doing the worst job. We have interest rates the same as Gabon. Europe, all of Europe, the 27 countries of Europe are in the 2s and we're in the 4s. That means your mortgage, everybody's watching, their mortgage is 2 points higher than it should be. Mm-hmm. So the Fed should be cutting rates, and Donald Trump's going to try to figure out how to get there. Whether he decides to let Jerome Powell stay in the job or not, I'll leave that to Donald Trump. I think the guy's doing the worst job. He's costing us, you and me and the American people, more than $500 billion. I think he's costing us $700 billion a year by keeping rates too high.
So the thing is, again, that they're gaslighting here, just blaming it all on Jerome Powell. And this is where you have to talk about Trump's numbers don't add up. It's deficit spending, increasing national debt, and slowing U.S. growth. So actually, there's three things there. And that'll send the bond market into disarray, and borrowing rates will go up, because the expectation is that Trump needs to borrow more money to fund the government, right? And who's going to want to buy U.S. debt when there's expectations they're going to need to borrow more and keep borrowing? Essentially, this whole thing that they're trying to sell you guys is like, hey, we're going to have tariffs, we're going to be so awesome, prices are going down, no inflation, energy is cheaper, etc. But it doesn't make sense. The logic isn't there, and that's why I have to show you guys this stuff. So, for example, they're talking about AI over on Fox News. Have a look at this.
Trump is set to announce $70 billion in AI and energy investments today into America during the Pennsylvania Energy and Innovation Summit. This initiative is drawing support from dozens of top energy and technology CEOs. The money will go toward building new data centers, expanding power generation, upgrading the grid, and scaling up AI job training. It becomes the latest push to position the U.S. ahead of China in the global AI race. Also today, Google is going to announce it will invest $25 billion to power AI infrastructure and data centers across Pennsylvania over the next 2 years.
Right? So they're trying to convince you, like, oh my God, guys, you're going to have all these jobs. They're going to be so rich. Look at all this AI stuff. And I just want you to think of this long term. So if the growth that the Trump and the people are promising you is all going to be in building robots and automation and all this AI stuff, what's going to happen to your jobs? It's just a simple question. And I want to hear people's thoughts in the comment. But like, what's the purpose of automation, AI, robots, etc.? And it should be obvious, it's to replace you. So one is they're bragging about all this new technology coming to replace you and then saying you're all going to have a job. It doesn't add up. And oftentimes these jobs that they're touting is jobs building the factories. And once that job is done, there's going to be not that many people in said factory, whatever, quote, AI factory means, maybe making chips, maybe energy, whatever. But a lot of this stuff is smoke and mirrors. And it's sad that people fall for these things. And I don't know how many, MAGA people out there are like, oh, wow, I'm going to get a job in an AI factory to accelerate replacing people. I don't know if they thought that through, but, there's that. And you have to understand this as well, is that a lot of stuff that the Trump people do, I mean, a ton of stuff they do doesn't make sense. But, just recently, Jensen Huang, the CEO over at NVIDIA, is like, yo, I need to sell chips to China. Please let me do that. And we don't know what NVIDIA or Jensen Huang promised Trump, because basically how this administration works is you bribe them, promise them something, say I'll buy a bunch of your stupid meme coins, right, crypto stuff, and then you'll get whatever you want. So it's kind of weird that they always are talking about beating China, yet literally this was just in the news this week, and I talked about before, but I understand everyone wants to talk about Epstein stuff. I get that. I'll make a video if you really want me to on that stuff. But I do want to talk about money, because I think money matters, guys. And then listen to how the energy people talk about these things.
What we're going to see today is really America's leaders coming together to discuss what is going to be the biggest challenge of our time. How do we win the race for AI with China? And the way that we're going to do that is we have to become energy dominant in this country, because we know how energy hungry AI and data centers are going to be. We've done half of it. We've done half of the challenge already by passing the One Big Beautiful Bill, which provided tremendous access to America's resources so that we can get the oil and gas that we're going to need to power this future.
And so this is coming from Mike Summers, American Petroleum Institute, president and CEO. So when you ask the energy person, the energy CEO, do we need more energy? Oh, yes, we definitely need more energy. And I hope you guys understand the logic of this stuff. So for these people, their main concerns is, make as much money off you as possible, right? So there's that. Do they care about the environment? Of course not, right? They're all about drilling everywhere you possibly can, building as many nuclear plants as you possibly can. In the USA, we're not really talking about, hey, how can we be more efficient? How can we conserve energy? How can we actually think about building a sustainable environment? No. Let's drill. Let's cut down all our trees in our national parks. Who needs national parks anyway? We need to keep that AI a business going, because that's the growth in the economy. Like, I hope you guys understand like the problems with this stuff. And it's sad that very few people call this stuff out. I get frustrated every day when I see this stuff, because it's obvious. They don't hide it. They don't hide what their plan is of like building all of these, technology to replace you, the worker. And then they keep talking about, oh, look at all this stuff that needs all this energy. We need more energy. Like why aren't we talking about, hey, let's figure out ways to build a sustainable life in a sustainable planet? But who am I to talk? Jensen Huang, the CEO who over NVIDIA is convincing Trump to sell more chips to China, is also selling stock in NVIDIA. He's been doing that for a while now. That was 12.94 million shares. Worth of shares, I should say. So 75,000 shares, so about $13 million. And then he also made another sale earlier for $37 million, and that was $225,000. This was actually an interesting tweet that Elon Musk made recently, and we can talk more about this in a separate video, but Musk wrote out, at times, AI existential dread is overwhelming. And it's funny because these kind of people, and I'm talking about Musk here, he'll always attack education. He'll attack anyone who has any sort of like reasonable opinion. And because for him, he's like, hey, move fast, break things. I'm a tech bro. Let's build, stupid cities on Mars, even though they're unsafe for people. But hey, let's try to do that and spend all our money blowing up rockets over your head. And then he's like, oh, wow. At times, AI existential dread is overwhelming, Like, what's the place of the world for humans? But I'm going to keep building robots and AI and try to replace people as much as possible. And for those of you who are higher level thinkers, you'll understand how ironic this particular thing is. And I'm just leaving it up there so you guys can ponder it as well, how ludicrous this whole thing is. And it's sad. And it goes back to, as I can state so many times, if you want a better future, you want to invest in education for people so you can tackle the future problems, right? Not just essentially hope for a savior, and that's essentially what a lot of people out there who love Musk and Trump, they want a savior figure, a Jesus figure to come save them. And I'm just telling you guys, the truth is, educate yourself and you'll see right through their lies very quickly. So I'll appreciate your time, everyone, all the time. And, share your thoughts in the community, as it's hard to go through this world together with essentially more and more people are in and part of a cold, it feels like, but not everyone. And I'll catch you all in the next video.